It's indeed a pleasure to be here at FNU campus the first time after my election. I haven't been to the other campuses in the Western Division in Lambasa, but I do look forward to visiting them probably later this year or next year. Also in my capacity as the chair of the FNU Council. Dr. Chand took half of my speech, earlier on. So thank you. He spoke like a politician, so that part is gone now. I want to thank the education team, of course, Dr. Chand, but more so the Dean of the College of Education and Humanities, for organizing this conference. As Dr. Chand has said, the conference is a culmination of research work that academics are supposed to do, and that feeds into policy making, or that should feed into policy making. And the interface between research and policy making can be in a number of forms, and conferences are one. And I do agree with the VC, Dr. Chand, that the policymakers must be present in these kinds of forums to critique the findings and to take those findings and feed into policy making. And that is for that reason that I had asked all our team members in the curriculum development unit, and given resource constraints, I had asked all our head teachers and principals in the Western Division to attend this conference, and I'm sure most of them are here. Again, colleagues, it's a pleasure to be here to talk to you on the theme of this conference, aligning national curriculum to development needs. Ladies and gentlemen, at an education conference, we cannot just talk about curriculum in isolation of the other key dimensions of education, which includes teaching and learning, human resources, and other resources which impinge on delivery of a quality education system. Let me begin by outlining what should our educational goals be and what processes of education will allow us to get there. Ladies and gentlemen, the education process and system is always linked with the final outcome that we are after. The final outcome is an educated society with produce wisdom, a society which has the ability to critically and logically think, reason out and make rational decisions, a society which is built on solid foundations of values and virtues and believe in fair-mindedness and inclusiveness. How do we get there to this kind of collective wisdom in the society? To get there, we need to free our mind from uncertainty, to unfetter our children to choose better options and not get deterred by their parents' or guardians' biddings, who may be stuck based on traditions or stuck to an era with different state of affairs. Furthermore, the alleyway will contribute to individuals' livelihoods and economic contribution, which will subsequently lead to nation building as a whole. How do we get there? Ladies and gentlemen, we have formal and informal institutions that could contribute towards this vision, possibly, if they accept and share the same vision and work hard, hand in hand, in delivering this vision. It'll be good to discuss someday on what our other religious and informal institutions have done or have been doing to contribute towards this greater good of the nation. Today, unfortunately, is not the day, and it's not possible to look at the role of informal institutions and all these religious bodies and NGOs that have contributed to this greater good. Today, we wish to talk about our formal institutions of education in Fiji. Again, I might not be able to do justice to that, but I'll talk linking to this issue of curriculum development, particularly in relation to high school and primary schools. Again, it may not be, it's not possible to do justice to look at curriculum to that extent for the higher education sector. The core of the education system gyrates around the teachers and his curriculum. Teachers' ability to deliver subject matter depends on the subject knowledge and the teacher training skills. I wish to assume that the teachers are thoroughly grounded in the subject matter. The next factor is the ability to deliver, and I wish to assume that a large proportion of teachers do have the required skills and natural attributes to deliver the subject matter effectively to the students. However, teachers are gratuitously constrained by routines or rules which they have no control over and are least likely to provide education with the vibrant delivery to the students. Teachers who themselves cannot speculate are unlikely to make speculation about their own students. We must ensure that we provide the right environment for them to effectively carry out their duties. We must ensure that they see their core responsibility as one which will provide the opportunities to grow and succeed in life. If we provide them with the secondary responsibilities and measure their success based on how well they deliver on the secondary objective, then we are doomed to fail in the deliverance of the core responsibility. And I exactly see myself what has happened to Fiji in primary and education system over the last decade is exactly this. The emphasis more on the secondary responsibility rather than the core primary responsibility, particularly the last 6 years. I have noted in the past and still now, many educators are unwilling to assume responsibility for students' low achievement and failure. Research in other countries on these issues reveal that efforts to raise achievements were hindered by school districts and educators' tendencies to place the problem within the student or family or within the school without examining the links between school practices, teacher delivery, and student outcomes. These researchers suggested that there is insufficient exploration of the institutional and individual practices, assumptions, and the processes that contribute to or fail to weaken these patterns. As a result, reform efforts are undermined by educators' deficit views and by their beliefs about the children who become the target of reforms. They believe that the students and the families are at a fault because from their perspective, these children enter school without the necessary prerequisite knowledge and skills, and that the so-called uncaring parents neither value nor support their child's education. These educators do not view themselves as part of the problem. There's little willingness to look for solutions within the educational system itself. An unwillingness to undertake change can often reflect attitudes of complacency on the part of educators that the school is doing an adequate job in educating its children, or resignation that they can do no more to educate them more effectively. This phenomenon of deficit thinking is quite extensively documented in a number of studies held in other countries. Having said this, I now want to focus on curriculum. The curriculum is the heart of the strategy to deliver the educational outcome. Any lapse in the curriculum result in our failure to deliver the intended outcome that I defined earlier on in this paper. From stakeholder feedback, we note some serious problems with our primary, high school, university graduates, including a recent consultation forum that we held, that was organized by the ministry. Taking away the teacher factor, where is the problem in Fiji? Is it with intended or operational curriculum? The intended curriculum results in plans and materials and textbooks and worksheets that are prepared often outside of the school site to control the focus and content of teaching. The intended curriculum is written, it has aims and objectives, it usually prescribes or suggests a sequence of activities and is often subject to external examination. It is the formal and public discourse study for which students, teachers, and schools, in one way or another, are held accountable. The operational curriculum is the result of how teachers mediate the intended curriculum. No curriculum teaches itself, and how teachers interpret what they receive is crucial to the kind of education students receive and the kind of growth teachers have an opportunity to experience. I think the problem is in both places. The intended curriculum fails to capture the depth and breadth of the subject matter in Fiji. It fails to draw on to those features that could provide our graduates to deliver onto the desired outcome and vision in the longer term. We need to benchmark our curriculum with those of other countries as well, with a proven track record. We need to identify the values and attributes that we want our graduates to have and work backwards to deliver. And I'm worried about our inability today to really identify the kind of attributes we want our graduates at different levels in the primary and high school system to have. And I must say, quite impressed that FNU has taken a lead role in doing that at the higher education sector, and the other universities are doing that as well. But I'm a bit worried and concerned about our inability to do this much earlier on in the primary and secondary school system. But work is happening in the ministry now, and for some time recently. But the damage is done. Operational curriculum development occurs in the main in the interaction between teacher and the curriculum materials. The major function of the operational creative curriculum materials is to amplify the teacher's skills and not to constrain them. In the classroom, the teacher exploits the interests and aptitudes of individual students and gives them opportunities to go in their own pace, as well as to pursue different ends individually. The good teacher, like the good school, increases rather than suppresses individual differences. The operational curriculum must function, of course, within appropriate constraints. In some cultures, the constraints are greater than in others. Even within the same country, different cultural groups often embrace different educational values and have different expectations for the school. The curriculum must also take into account context conditions in deciding what is right in particular circumstances. Some teachers working in some circumstances will need much guidance and direction. If so, the curriculum material should provide it. Other teachers will need far less. They will be able to handle much more complexity. And here too, curriculum materials should provide and allow for that. When I drive my car in the super city center, I need no map to get around. I know the territory, and I can concentrate on the scenery that surrounds me, not on the signs that tells me where I am. But in some cities where I haven't been, for example, probably, own name, let's say, I will need street and road signs. My dependency on them imposes a cost. I can pay far less attention to the scenery than I would be able to if I knew the streets well. But I'd rather know where I am than to get lost, at least for the time. Good curriculum materials provide resources that amplify the teacher's ability given the circumstances in which he or she works. So what really I'm saying is amplification contains the idea that good curriculum not only teaches students, it helps the teacher learn as well. These teachers are also beneficiaries of a curriculum designed for students, and as a result, they are gradually becoming independent of the curriculum they are learning from. Good curriculum materials both emancipate and educate teachers. Most of them, what I've said so far, has focused on the operational curriculum. What is that teachers do in the process of mediating curriculum materials? Good intended curriculum take into account teachers' working circumstances and their practical pedagogical needs. On the student side, the suggested activities of the curriculum should be intellectually challenging to the student and stimulate higher order critical thinking. Creative curriculum development provides activities that challenge, that require higher order thinking, and that diminish students' dependency on the teacher in knowing when they succeeded. Our students should have a good understanding of the relationship between language of the logic, leading to the ability to analyze, criticize, and advocate ideas, to reason inductively and deductively, and to reach factual or judgmental conclusions based on sound inferences drawn from unambiguous statements of knowledge and beliefs. They should be able to think outside the box and also differentiate between when a knowledge can graduate from being a private to public knowledge. And this is a real problem, a serious problem in Fiji, often throughout, you see, even amongst our own, the so-called educated society or qualified society. And that's often I tend to argue. There's a difference between qualified people and educated people, those who have wisdom. I emphasize the importance of recognizing and highlighting a fundamental difference between two distinct consumptions of critical thinking skills. That is, the concept of these skills in a weak sense and in a strong sense. Conceived of in a weak sense, critical thinking skills are understood as a set of discrete micrological skills, ultimately intrinsic to the character of the person. Skills that can be tracked onto other learning. In the strong sense, critical thinking skills are understood as a set of integrated macrological skills, ultimately intrinsic to the character of the person and to insight into one's own cognitive and effective processes. If we opt for the latter, we will concern ourselves not only with the development of the technical reason skills that do not transform one's grasp of one's basic cognitive and effective processes, but also with the development of emancipatory reasons. Skills that generate not only fundamental insight into, but also command one's own cognitive and effective processes. Also, in the strong sense, we emphasize comprehensive critical thinking skills essential to the free, rational, and autonomous mind. In the weak sense, we are content to develop what typically comes down to vocational thinking skills, which by themselves have little influence on a person's intellectual, emotional, and moral autonomy. By aspiring to strong sense critical thinking skills for long-term goals, and by taking stock of where we now stand, careful consideration of the evidence will eventually convince us that there are deep-seated tendencies in the human mind to reason in order to maximize getting and to justify getting what we often unconsciously want. This typically involves using cognitive and effective processes to maintain self-serving or pleasant illusions, to rule out or unfairly undermine opposing ideas, to link our identity with ideas that are ours such that disagreement is experienced as ego-threatening and otherwise to distort or misinterpret our experience to serve our own advantage. And I do hope that those researchers in the area of this take this into account when developing curriculums. The best short-term strategy is to facilitate the understanding and the teaching of micrological, analytical, critical thinking skills within established subject areas. At the base of this is the importance of skill in elementary, critical, analytical vocabulary of the English language, a working knowledge of such mundane terms as premise, reason, conclusion, inference, assumption, relevant, irrelevant, consistent, contradictory, credible, doubtful, evidence, facts, interpretation, question at issue, problem, and so on. Teachers should be encouraged to take at least one university-level course in critical thinking that provides practice in the basic micrological skills associated with these terms. Such a course can teach them how to isolate and distinguish issues, premises, assumptions, conclusions, and inferences, and to master the rudiments of argument assessment, or this should be merged with the compulsory ethics and language unit that students are required to do in the graduate program. This may be a solution in the short term, but probably I think we need to rethink and probably, given the problems that situations we're facing, probably have a unit on critical thinking, probably in the final year. I must also emphasize from the outset that the ability to think critically is a matter of degree. No one is without any critical skills, and no one has them so fully that there are no areas of his or her life and thought in which uncritical thinking is dominant. The next issue that I wish to emphasize is the lack of entrepreneurial education in our curriculum. Fiji faces a number of challenges that can only be met if it has had innovative, well-educated and entrepreneurial citizens who, whatever the walk of life, have the spirit and inquisitiveness to think in new ways and courage to meet and adapt to challenges facing them. We need dreamers in classroom who would think that they would want to be the Bill Gates or Forbes, etc. Moreover, a dynamic economy, which is innovative and able to create the jobs that are needed, will require a greater number of young people who are willing and able to become entrepreneurs, young people who will launch and successfully develop their own commercial and social ventures, or who will become innovators in the wider organizations in which they work. Because education is key to shaping young people's attitudes and skills and culture, it is vital that entrepreneurship education is addressed from an early age. Entrepreneurship education is essential not only to shape the mindsets of young people, but also to provide the skills and knowledge that are central to developing an entrepreneurial culture. It refers to individual's ability to turn ideas into action. It includes creativity, innovation, and risk-taking, as well as the ability to plan and manage projects in order to achieve objectives. Developing mindsets, generic attributes, and skills that are the foundations of entrepreneurship can be complemented by imparting more specific knowledge about business according to the level and type of education. Entrepreneurship education can be integrated into general education in different ways. A cross-curricular approach can be taken, it can be integrated into existing subjects, or it can be introduced as a separate curriculum subject. Where entrepreneurship education is integrated into other subjects, these are mostly subjects which form part of the compulsory education. In most countries, entrepreneurship education is taught as part of social sciences, which includes history, geography, government, politics, or civic education, as well as other related areas such as community studies. In a few countries, entrepreneurship education is part of the subjects other than social science. The overall goal of entrepreneurship education is to give students the attitudes, knowledge, and skills to act in an entrepreneurial way. But outside this, also, the way we advertise our programs also matters in terms of giving a signal to a student what the student would be able to do once they graduate. The moment you start putting in your advertisements that you do this program, you'll be able to get a job here, etc., demonstrates that you basically are wanting to breed out and churn out job seekers. And that's quite worrying. I think the whole higher education sector in this country needs to change the way they're advertising the programs, the least. We in the ministry wishes to address some of these lacunas by a number of strategies over the next year period via Education Commission. However, some of these things needs to be addressed much sooner, as we have already created the damage. For now, we wish to do the following. We wish to reclaim our teachers back as teacher by reducing the administrative load so that they turn back to their core responsibility of teaching and learning. And we want to reduce that by a minimum of 60%. We will work with the school system to appoint full-time admin assistants in every primary and secondary schools, whose only job is to take all administrative work, data entry that was previously done by school teachers. The teachers will pass on all the data entry to this administrative admin officer. All bus fare, voucher distribution to the students, all FEMIS data entry, etc., will be done by these officers, not by the teachers. We will relook at the JDs of principals and head teachers so that they ensure that the teachers spend maximum time in teaching and learning for students, and also attend to disciplinary matters without having to send our divisional officers as police officers. We will ask that all syllabus be completed by end of term 2, early term 3, so that the term 3 is spent on structured revision work and remedial classes of students. Weekly reports will be collected from schools on remedial work, and student evaluation of teachers will be undertaken and facilitated by principals and head teachers. in our bid to ensure that all teachers cover full syllabus in a given year and that students and stakeholders get to know the correct status of student performance, we will now make the following changes to our examination assessment policy from year 6 to 10. I'll deal with Sai later on. All school-based annual exams will now be replaced by final exam paper that will be prepared by the Ministry's Exams and Curriculum Development Unit. This will ensure all students, no matter in which school he or she is sitting the exam, the coverage of the exam paper is of the same level and standard, that the marking intensity is same across all the schools in Fiji. A marking and solution guide will be provided by our CDU and exams office, which will be provided to all schools, which will be used by the teachers to mark these final exams. Answer scripts for exams in year 6, 10, 12, and 13 will be marked by different set of examiners appointed by the ministry. Despite having exams from year 6, students will be allowed to progress to year 10. However, following year 10, students will have to choose which stream they wish to further their education. The higher education stream or the technical education stream, those with less marks in subject areas plus less aptitude, will either have to undertake technical education or repeat. The option for repeating year 10 will also be given for those who really have some aspirations to get into the higher education stream. We will identify teachers from our schools with a minimum of 5 years of teaching experience, and they will be provided with specialized training for infant teaching. We don't want these young 19, 20 graduates out of universities to come and teach our class 1 and 2. Their salary will be revised, and from 2016, all students in year 1 and 2 will only be taught by these specialized infant teachers. These infant teachers are, after they finish or graduate out of the university, they will go and teach for 5 years. Then we will identify mature teachers with motherly instinct, and they will get back to the university campus and get this specialized training in infant child handling. So probably some business person here. We're strengthening our curriculum development unit by appointing subject matter specialists. They're required to have a minimum of bachelor's and master's degree in the respective subject area. They will work closely with your research team as well, and these will be authorities in the respective areas. The least we can do is to get master's people in this area, and I hope in not too distant future we'll have PhD holders in each of these subject areas. You want a CDU OPSA in biology, you need to have bachelor's degree, good bachelor's degree in biology, good master's degree in biology, and hopefully good PhD degree in biology, not any other peripheral areas or MBAs or development studies, etc. That we will, going forward next year, as our curriculum development unit is doing now, continue with our revision of curriculums, with also by benchmarking with other countries where we see the education system have really done well in terms of delivering the final outcome and vision for the country. We would want to ensure our curriculum provides critical thinking and entrepreneurship education. We will ensure our curriculum reflects our culture, arts, and heritage. That is critical to developing or delivering onto the vision that the government has in terms of the kind of society we want to have. We will work closely with our local teacher training institutions to ask them to adopt a common education curriculum by year 2016 if they wish the graduates to be absorbed by the ministry. It's very difficult now to say that we select students based on GPAs. What is behind that? Because first of all, you've got the 3 universities providing teacher training graduates, and there are other institutions as well. if you just go by GPA, we don't know what curriculum they've gone, what the curriculum is there, who are teaching this, etc. So it take a little bit of time to get those information. But the issue of curriculum, we need to have one curriculum. Then only we'll say this particular product, we can use grade to differentiate whom we'll take. Otherwise, you can't use grade to differentiate because the products, because what curriculum have they come through? So it's collectively we need to sit down and agree on what is the right curriculum for the country. We intend to have bright minds in the classroom, and therefore we will have a cut-off GPA with regard to who will be allowed to teach. We will make mandatory for our teachers to obtain basic training in counseling, first aid and OHS, and this will be provided to them by ministry or facilitated by the ministry at no cost to them. We are in the process of strengthening our schools. In particular, we are ensuring libraries are appropriately resourced and staff are appropriately trained. Those staff who do not have library qualification, within the next couple of months, we intend to provide a short-term training to upskill them, at least so that they can handle the basic resource materials. But in the long run, we'll make it compulsory that they upskill and get the qualifications in library studies via FNU or USP, which are the two institutions that are offering. But FNU is offering the degree level, which is excellent. We will adopt our poor performing schools where we will place our own principals and head teachers of our choice and uplift the school profile. We also want to next year appoint a principal and head teacher as a roving principal and roving head teacher. And they will visit the schools and spend time there to ensure the school is functioning in line with our expectations. They will spend a minimum of at least a week to 2-3 weeks at a particular school to ensure everything is in order before moving to another school. We will closely work with schools with deliberated infrastructure and make directed allocations to uplift the state of infrastructure in these schools. We will define the role of grant-paid auxiliary staff to take on admin role that teaching staff are required to do. We will develop a structured professional development program that our teachers will be required to undertake. Our 3 universities who are receiving government grant may wish to bid to undertake this professional development program, as this will also provide opportunities to market the programs to our teachers and students. So, you come, we give you free access to our teachers and students, and you provide us with this training and professional development program that our teachers would want to. However, our officers from CDU and professional development units will develop them should they not wish to come on board. So the MOFA is there on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bainimarama government is determined to build a fair, just, and inclusive society. Having an education system that would complement public policy making to deliver onto this vision is critical. We don't have any other alternative, hence we will deliver. Our ministry looks forward to working with you all in this journey, and that we have mapped out ourselves, and I do hope that you will agree to join in and help out. These kinds of conferences will amazingly contribute to the kind of collective wisdom that we need to have in the society, the kind of collective wisdom that we need to have in the government policy making. And I want to commend the Fijian University, the Vice Chancellor for his leadership, and I commend the College of Education, Humanities and Arts for organizing this conference. And I'm sure we'll be able to get to read these papers and participate in the deliberations and ask those critical questions that inquisitive minds should ask, and then ultimately converge onto those policy implications and use it in our decision-making apparatus. Vice Chancellor, colleagues, it's my pleasure to declare the symposium conference open, and I wish you all a very productive and rewarding discussions ahead. I look forward to any output that may come out from this. As I note, some very interesting papers, as you have alluded to earlier on, that will be presented today. Thank you, Naka and Dhanyavad.